My sister stole my groom on the morning of my wedding. Before sunrise, I married the most feared Mafia boss in Chicago. Claire Bennett stood beneath 300 white roses while the man she loved held her sister's hand. Her parents did not defend her. They asked her to leave quietly so the guests would not see the truth. So Claire walked into the freezing Chicago streets wearing a wedding dress and carrying nothing but a phone, a few dollars, and the pain of finally understanding her place in her own family. Then Luca Moretti found her. He needed a wife before dawn, or his enemies would take everything his father had built. Claire needed a life no one else could control. But their marriage would uncover an old betrayal connecting both families. Stay until the end, because this is not just a revenge story. It is about choosing yourself after everyone else chooses against you. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. To understand why Claire Bennett agreed to marry a stranger before sunrise, you had to go back 6 months to the first afternoon she stood beneath the ceiling of Harrington House and believed she was building a future. The ballroom faced Lake Michigan through a wall of tall windows. Late spring light poured across the polished floor, catching dust in the air and turning it gold. Workers moved ladders beneath the chandeliers while a florist arranged white roses across a long table. Claire stood in the center of the room with a clipboard pressed to her chest. She had chosen the roses because they looked simple from a distance. Up close, every petal curved differently. Some opened wide. Others held themselves tight around the center. She liked that. Nothing truly beautiful was as perfect as it first appeared. A woman from the venue approached with a folder. "We can fit 220 guests comfortably," she said. 250 if we adjust the west tables. Claire looked at the floor plan. "My mother is expecting 300. The woman hesitated. 300 will be crowded." Claire smiled with the familiar patience she used at school when a child wanted an answer that reality could not provide. "My mother considers discomfort a fair price for being impressive." The woman laughed before realizing Claire was serious. The ballroom doors opened behind them. Vanessa Bennett entered wearing sunglasses large enough to cover half her face. Her dark hair fell in glossy waves over a cream coat she had probably bought that morning. She carried an iced coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. "Please tell me these are not the final flowers." Claire glanced at the roses. "They are samples." Vanessa removed her sunglasses. "They look cheap. They cost more than my first car. That does not mean they look expensive." Claire lowered her clipboard. "They are flowers, Vanessa. They are not supposed to intimidate people." Vanessa smiled. "That is exactly why you need me." She crossed the room and lifted one of the roses between 2 fingers. For most of Claire's life, Vanessa had possessed the kind of beauty that made people forgive her before she did anything wrong. Teachers had excused unfinished work. Men had abandoned conversations when she entered a room. Their mother had called her difficult with the tenderness other mothers reserved for gifted children. Claire had been called dependable. The word sounded like praise until she became old enough to understand what it required. Dependable children did not demand attention. They did not embarrass their parents. They did not need rescuing. Vanessa dropped the rose back onto the table. "Where is Ethan?" "At work. He could have taken an afternoon off." "He has a closing." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "You always have an answer ready for him." Claire returned her attention to the floor plan. "I usually know where he is." Vanessa looked at her for a moment longer than the conversation required. Then her phone buzzed. She turned the screen away as she answered. "I have to take this." She walked toward the windows, her voice lowering as she moved. Claire watched her reflection in the glass. Vanessa smiled at something the caller said. It was a private smile. Soft. Almost shy. Claire had not seen that expression on her sister in years. "Is everything all right?" Claire asked. Vanessa ended the call. "Everything is perfect." She put the sunglasses back on. For reasons Claire could not explain, the answer stayed with her. That evening, the Bennett family gathered for dinner at Frank and Diane's home in Lincoln Park. The house had the careful beauty of a place designed to be admired. Pale stone, tall windows, furniture no one sat on unless guests were present. Claire arrived 10 minutes early with a bottle of wine. Vanessa arrived 30 minutes late with nothing. Diane kissed both daughters on the cheek and apologized only for Claire. "Your father has been waiting." Frank Bennett sat at the head of the table reading a message on his phone. At 62, he had built a reputation around steadiness. His suits were dark, his voice was measured, and his decisions always sounded inevitable after he made them. Ethan sat at Frank's right. Claire noticed that before she noticed the empty seat beside him. Her seat. Vanessa crossed the room and sat there without asking. Diane looked at Claire. "You can sit across from them, sweetheart." Claire placed the wine on the table. "Of course." Ethan gave her a small apologetic smile. It was the same smile he used when a restaurant lost their reservation or when his firm canceled a vacation. He never made scenes. Neither did Claire. During dinner, Frank asked Vanessa about her new position at a marketing agency. Vanessa had been there 3 weeks. She spoke for 20 minutes. She described the office, the clients, the company retreat, and a senior director who had already told her she had leadership potential. Frank raised his glass. "To our rising executive." Everyone drank. Claire waited until the glasses returned to the table. The district approved the counseling grant. Diane looked up. "What grant?" "The one I have been working on since January. It will fund 2 additional counselors and a family crisis program." "That is wonderful," Ethan said. His phone vibrated beneath the table. He glanced at it. Vanessa glanced at hers at almost the same moment. Diane turned to Frank. Vanessa should speak to someone about managing the agency's community accounts. Claire's school might be useful for that. Claire's achievement disappeared before it finished entering the room. She looked down at her plate. Ethan reached beneath the table and touched her knee. The gesture might have felt comforting if he had not been looking at his phone while he did it. Later, Claire found him alone in the kitchen. He stood near the marble counter, typing quickly. "Everything okay?" she asked. He locked the screen. "Work. You have been working through dinner. Frank asked me to review something. My father asks you for legal advice now." Ethan loosened his tie. "It is nothing serious. He is considering another waterfront project." Claire leaned against the counter. "You know he likes having you in the room more than he likes having me there." "That is not true. He put you beside him at dinner. Vanessa took your chair, and nobody asked her to move." Ethan sighed. "Claire, do not make this about the seating." She watched him carefully. "What should I make it about?" He stepped closer and kissed her forehead. "You are tired." It was not an answer. That should have mattered more than it did. Instead, Claire allowed the kiss to close the conversation. She had spent too many years learning that peace was something she maintained by refusing to ask the second question. 3 weeks later, Mara Quinn sat cross-legged on Claire's living room floor with a stack of wedding invitations around her. Mara worked nights in an emergency room and carried exhaustion with the competence of someone who had accepted it as part of her uniform. She wore gray sweatpants, an old college shirt, and her red hair tied in a knot. She wrote one address, blew on the ink, and looked up. "Do you want to marry him?" Claire stopped folding tissue paper. "Yes, that was fast. You asked a simple question. I asked a simple question because you have been answering complicated ones all night." Claire looked at the invitation spread between them. What complicated questions? Why Ethan changed his phone password? Why he canceled the tasting? Why he has been meeting your father twice a week? He is helping with a property deal. Why does a commercial lawyer need to hide that from his future wife? He is not hiding it. Mara waited. The silence irritated Claire because it made room for answers she did not want. Claire resumed folding. "He is stable. He is thoughtful. He calls every night, at exactly 8. "Yes, like an appointment." Claire set down the paper. "What are you trying to say?" Mara's expression softened. I am asking whether you want Ethan or whether you want the life everyone says comes after Ethan. Claire stared at her. A quiet apartment, a husband with a respectable career, children in a good school, Sunday dinners where nobody had to wonder what came next. I want a family, Claire said. You already have one. You know what I mean. Mara held her gaze. Yes, she said. I do. Across the city, Luca Moretti stood at the end of a black walnut table while 12 men debated whether he was strong enough to keep his father's organization. The Moretti offices occupied the upper floors of a renovated warehouse near the river. The building belonged to one of the family's shipping companies. On paper, everything inside it was legitimate. The men at the table knew paper was only one version of truth. Malcolm Rourke sat 3 seats from Luca with his hands folded over his stomach. He was 58, silver-haired and broad-shouldered, with the relaxed confidence of a man who believed time itself was working for him. Your father understood balance, Rourke said. The legitimate companies protected the rest. They did not replace it. Luca remained standing. The old routes are expensive, unstable, and visible. They are profitable. They are also the reason federal agents know the names of men who should be invisible. A few men shifted in their chairs. Rourke smiled. You think caution makes you modern. I think survival makes me responsible. Responsibility is a word men use when they are afraid to say control. Luca leaned forward, placing both hands on the table. Then let me be clear. The dock's construction firms and security contracts remain under Moretti control. The narcotics routes are closed. The trafficking contacts are gone. Anyone who attempts to reopen either answers to me. The room went still. Rourke's smile faded. Luca did not raise his voice. He never needed to. After the meeting, Sal DeLuca followed him into the private office. Sal had served Antonio Moretti for 23 years. He was thick through the shoulders, gray at the temples, and carried himself with the quiet formality of another era. Rourke is testing the room, Sal said. He has been testing it since my father died. The inheritance date gives him courage. Luca walked to the window. Below them, the river moved between towers of steel and glass. Antonio's will contained a succession condition written decades earlier. It had been intended to force stability after his death. Instead, it had given Rourke a deadline. If Luca remained unmarried when the estate reached its 36th month of administration, several controlling interests could be challenged by senior partners. The deadline was 6 months away. Luca had not been concerned. He was engaged to Caroline Bishop. Their marriage was practical, but the arrangement was understood. Caroline's family had political influence. Luca's family had capital and protection. Neither of them pretended it was love. Trust Luca believed was more useful. 9 days before the deadline, Caroline disappeared. Her closet was empty. 2 accounts had been drained. Her phone had been found inside a trash bin at O'Hare Airport. Security footage showed her boarding a flight to Lisbon with a man named Thomas Vale. Luca watched the footage twice. On the 3rd viewing, he noticed Caroline never looked frightened. She looked relieved. Sal stood behind him in the dark security room. We found a payment, Sal said, from Vale to Vale. His debts were cleared through a consulting company registered in Nevada. Who owns it? We do not know yet. Luca watched Caroline disappear through the gate. Rourke. Sal said nothing. Silence was confirmation enough. The night before Claire's wedding, the Bennett family hosted a rehearsal dinner at a private restaurant overlooking the lake. Candles reflected in the windows. Snow pressed softly against the glass. Claire moved between tables correcting name cards and answering questions nobody else seemed able to answer. Ethan arrived late. Vanessa arrived 5 minutes after him. Claire noticed because Mara noticed. Her friend stood near the bar watching them remove their coats. You see it too, Mara said. Claire kept her eyes on the seating chart. See what? They walked in separately and looked at each other before they looked at anyone else. They probably met downstairs. Claire. My sister has known Ethan for 3 years. That does not make me feel better. During dinner, Vanessa left the table. Ethan waited less than a minute before checking his phone and following. Claire told herself he was taking a work call. Then she stood. The hallway outside the dining room was narrow and dimly lit. Framed photographs of old Chicago lined the walls. Claire heard Vanessa before she saw her. You promised. Ethan's voice came lower. Not here. When tomorrow. Claire stepped around the corner. They stood too close beside the coat room. Vanessa's fingers were wrapped around Ethan's wrist. Both of them moved apart. Ethan recovered first. Vanessa is upset. Claire looked at her sister. About what? Vanessa crossed her arms. Nothing. Ethan stepped toward Claire. She heard from Derek. Vanessa had dated Derek nearly a year earlier. Claire knew the relationship had ended badly. She also knew Vanessa never cried over the same man twice. Are you okay? Claire asked. Vanessa looked directly at Ethan. I will be. The answer landed strangely. Claire felt it, a small shift beneath her ribs. Not proof, not even suspicion, just the sensation of stepping onto a floorboard that moved beneath her weight. Before she could ask anything else, Diane called her name from the dining room. The seating chart is wrong. Claire turned. When she looked back, Ethan was already walking toward her. Vanessa remained near the coat room, watching. That night, Claire lay awake beside Ethan in the apartment they had shared for 11 months. His breathing was even. His phone rested face down on the nightstand. At 2:13 in the morning, the screen lit up. No name appeared. Only a message preview. Are you sure? Claire stared at it. Ethan shifted beside her. She turned away before he opened his eyes. In the darkness, she told herself there were explanations. There were always explanations. Morning arrived, pale and cold. By 7, Claire was standing in the bridal suite at Harrington House while Rosa pinned her hair. By 7:40, Vanessa was wearing Claire's reception dress. By 8, Ethan had placed Claire's future in someone else's hands. And by 6 minutes before dawn the following morning, Claire Bennett had become Claire Moretti. The return to the present felt almost violent. One moment she was remembering Ethan asleep beside her. The next, she was standing in a bedroom she had never seen before inside a house guarded by men who knew how to conceal weapons beneath tailored coats. Her wedding dress hung from the closet door. Rosa Bell, the housekeeper, had left a navy robe on the bed and a tray of coffee near the window. Claire removed the pearl earrings her mother had chosen. She placed them beside her phone. 14 missed calls. 6 from Diane. 3 from Frank. 2 from Ethan. 1 from Vanessa. 2 from Mara. Claire opened Mara's message first. Are you safe? Claire typed yes. 3 dots appeared immediately. Do you want me to come get you? Claire looked around the room. The high ceiling, the locked windows, the unfamiliar silence. Not yet, she wrote. Call me when you do. I mean it. Claire put the phone down. She changed out of the wedding dress carefully. It had cost $800. She had paid for it herself. She refused to leave it crumpled on the floor simply because the morning had turned it into evidence. When she entered Luca's study, he was standing behind a wide desk covered in legal documents. 2 men Claire did not know were speaking quietly near the windows. Sal stood beside a bookcase. Luca looked up. Leave us. The men exited without argument. Sal followed, closing the door behind him. Claire remained standing. Luca gestured toward a chair. I would rather stand. He studied her for a moment. Then he moved from behind the desk, pulled the chair into the open space between them, and sat down himself. The gesture placed him at her eye level. Claire noticed. You said there was something I needed to know about my father. Luca rested his forearms on his knees. 22 years ago, your father managed the financial structure of a waterfront development near the Calumet River. Claire waited. My father invested in it. So did 2 other families. The property would have connected 3 shipping routes and doubled the value of every warehouse attached to them. What happened? Frank Bennett withdrew the night before closing. Claire frowned. That sounds like business. He did not simply withdraw. Luca's voice remained calm, but something colder entered it. He convinced 2 investors to leave with him. The development collapsed. My father lost the money he invested, the properties he used as collateral, and several contracts tied to the project. Claire crossed her arms. Why would my father do that? He had already made a separate agreement with the group that purchased the property after the collapse. The room seemed to narrow. You are saying he sabotaged the project. I am saying he looked my father in the eye, told him the investment was safe, and withdrew after arranging to profit from the failure. Claire thought of Frank at the head of the dinner table. Frank giving speeches about discipline. Frank correcting waiters without raising his voice. Frank telling Claire that reputation was the only form of wealth no market could take away. Do you have proof? Yes. How long have you had it? 8 months. Claire looked toward the window. Snow moved across the glass in thin white lines. You were investigating him. I was verifying what happened, and you were outside my wedding because of him. Luca did not answer immediately. Claire turned back. You were there before you met me? Yes. The word struck harder than she expected. Why your father was listed among the guests. I wanted to see him before deciding whether to confront him. Claire's heartbeat changed. You said finding me was an accident. It was. You were 1 block from my wedding because you were watching my father. Yes. And then his daughter walked into you wearing a wedding dress. Yes. Claire let the silence stretch. Luca did not fill it. That was the first thing about him she understood. He did not rush to make uncomfortable truths feel smaller. Did you know who I was? She asked. Not until after the license was filed. Sal checked my name. My attorneys checked everything. And when you found out, Luca stood slowly. I considered whether you had been sent. Claire laughed once. There was no humor in it. Sent by whom? Your father, Rourke. Anyone who knew the deadline. I had just been removed from my own wedding. I know that now. You saw me in the dress. I saw what someone wanted me to see. Claire stepped closer. And what do you see now? Luca held her gaze. A woman who read every page before she signed. A woman who demanded terms when she had no coat, no home. She was willing to enter in less than an hour to decide. That is not an answer. No, he said. It is the beginning of one. Claire felt anger rise through the shock. Not loud anger. Not the kind that broke glass. The colder kind that sharpened everything. My father's choices belong to him. I agree. You do not get to look at me and see a debt he owes. I agree. You do not get to decide I am dangerous because he is dishonest. I have not decided that. Claire's voice lowered. That is worse. Luca's jaw tightened. Probably. The honesty stopped her. Most men defended themselves when cornered. Ethan had smiled. Frank had explained. Luca simply stood there and allowed the worst interpretation to remain in the room. Claire looked at him for a long moment. You do not trust me. I do not know you. Then learn. Something shifted in his expression. Small, almost invisible. Respect, perhaps. Or recognition. A knock sounded at the door. Sal entered without waiting. His face had changed. He carried a phone in one hand and a printed page in the other. Luca. Claire turned toward him. Sal looked at her, then back at Luca. Rourke knows her name. Luca took the page. How we are still tracing it. Claire watched his eyes move across the text. What is he saying? Luca handed her the paper. The message had been sent to 3 senior associates. Luca Moretti did not meet Claire Bennett by chance. He identified Frank Bennett's daughter and used the marriage to absorb an old enemy into the Moretti succession. Claire read it twice. Her wedding morning had lasted less than 2 hours. Rourke had already rewritten it. She placed the page on the desk. "He is not trying to prove the marriage is illegal." "No," Luca said. "He is trying to make people believe it was planned." "Yes." Claire looked at Sal. "And are they listening?" Sal's silence answered before his words did. "Some of them." Luca moved toward the window. Outside, Chicago disappeared beneath the snow. Claire looked from the message to the man she had married and understood that the contract had secured his inheritance, but it had also placed her name at the center of a war that began before she was born. She lifted her chin. "Then stop treating me like a problem you need to hide." Luca turned. Claire met his eyes. "If they are going to use my name, I want to know exactly who is saying it and why." For the first time since she entered the house, Luca did not look at her as a stranger, a risk, or the daughter of Frank Bennett. He looked at her as someone standing inside the same fight. "Sit down," he said. This time, Claire took the chair. Luca remained standing beside the window while Sal placed 3 folders on the desk. Each one carried a name Claire had never heard before: Grant Holloway, Peter Rinaldi, Joseph Kane. Sal opened the first folder. "These men control the alliances Rourke needs. They are not part of the Moretti family, but they control labor contracts, freight access, private security, and enough political influence to make every legal business we own difficult to operate." Claire looked at the photographs clipped inside. Men in dark suits at charity dinners, men shaking hands beside construction sites, men smiling beside mayors, judges, and union representatives. They decide whether your marriage is legitimate. They decide whether Rourke's story becomes useful, Luca said. Claire looked up. "That is not the same thing." "No." "If they believe the marriage was planned, what happens?" Sal answered. "They begin questioning Luca's judgment. Then they question his authority. After that, every agreement becomes negotiable." Claire studied the folders again. "What does Rourke want them to believe about me?" "That you are leverage," Luca said. "That your father sent you. That I married you to gain control over the Bennett name and bury the old dispute." Claire closed the folder. "Then we should stop behaving as if I need to be hidden." Luca's eyes settled on her. "You were married less than 3 hours ago, and Rourke has already introduced me to half the city. You are exhausted. I am angry. They feel similar, but they are not the same." Sal lowered his gaze, hiding what might have been approval. Luca moved away from the window. "What are you suggesting Claire thought of the ballroom? The white roses, Vanessa standing in her dress. Her family had controlled the story because they had spoken first. She would not make the same mistake twice." "You said there are public events where your wife is expected to appear. 2 in the next 14 days. Move one closer." Luca's expression hardened. "That would expose you before we understand the threat. They already know my name. They do not know your face. Then they can invent one." Claire stood. "You told me Rourke is saying I was selected. If I disappear inside this house, I look selected. If I stand beside you and answer for myself, he has to work harder." Luca watched her in silence. Claire recognized the calculation behind his eyes. He was measuring risk, reaction, and consequence. She also recognized the moment he began deciding for her. "No," she said. His brow moved slightly. "No what?" "No to whatever conclusion you are reaching without speaking." Sal looked toward the floor. Luca did not. "You could be targeted." "I understand. You do not understand the way men like Rourke apply pressure." Claire stepped closer. "I understand men who believe a woman's silence belongs to them." The words landed between them. Luca glanced at Sal. Give us the room." Sal collected 2 of the folders and left the first behind. When the door closed, Luca walked to the desk. "You believe this is the same as what your family did. I believe the language is the same. I am trying to keep you alive, and they were trying to protect the family." His jaw tightened. "That is not a fair comparison." "No, but fairness is not the point." Claire placed her hand on the closed folder. "You offered protection without surveillance, full disclosure about anything that touches me directly. You agreed because I refused to sign without those terms." "I remember." "Then do not reduce those terms to words that only matter when you are comfortable." Luca looked at her for a long moment. The house remained silent around them. No footsteps outside the door, no voices in the hallway. Finally he nodded. "There is a dinner in 3 nights. With whom? Grant Holloway and his wife." Claire looked down at the photograph. Grant Holloway was 64 broad through the chest with silver hair and a face that gave nothing away. What does he want? Stability. What does he fear? Looking weak. What does his wife want? Luca paused. Most people do not ask about Celeste. Most people are usually looking at the wrong person. A small change touched his mouth. Not a smile. Close enough that Claire noticed. "I will have Sal prepare a briefing," he said. "I want the whole file. You will get the relevant parts." Claire stared at him. Luca exhaled slowly. The whole file. That afternoon, Rosa Bell brought clothing to Claire's room. The dresses were simple, dark, and expensive in the way that required no labels. The coats were warm. The shoes were practical enough to walk in. Claire ran her fingers across the sleeve of a navy dress. "How did you know my size?" Rosa hung another dress inside the closet. "I have dressed women in this house for 30 years. That sounds like an answer designed to prevent another question. Rosa looked at her. "Mr. Moretti gave me a photograph from the wedding license." Claire waited. And I am good at my job." Rosa closed the closet door. There was no defensiveness in her voice, no apology. Claire appreciated that more than she expected. "Did Luca ask you to replace my clothes?" "He asked me to make certain you had choices." The distinction felt deliberate. Rosa moved toward the bedroom door. "Dinner is at 7. Mr. Moretti usually eats in the smaller dining room when there are no guests. Usually he has not had a wife before." Claire almost smiled. Rosa did not. At 7, Claire entered a dining room lined with books instead of paintings. Luca sat at one end of a table designed for 12 people. He had removed his jacket and rolled his sleeves to his forearms. A thin cut crossed his right hand. Claire noticed it immediately. "That blood was yours." Luca looked at his cuff. "Some of it." "What happened?" "Rourke sent a man to the warehouse this morning to negotiate." "No." Claire took the chair across from him. "You told me there would be no criminal involvement. There will not be. You arrived with blood on your sleeve. I did not ask you to participate. That is not the same thing." A server placed soup between them and left. Luca waited until the door closed. The man was there to sabotage a shipment. Security stopped him. He pulled a knife. "And you were close enough to be cut." "I was already there." Claire looked at his hand. "Did you kill him?" Luca's face did not change. "No." "Did someone else?" "No." The directness eased something she had not realized was tense. "What happens to him?" "He will be charged with trespassing, property damage, and assault." "That sounds very legal." "It is." Claire lifted her spoon. "Why does it sound like you are trying to convince me because I am not accustomed to explaining myself at dinner?" Then we are both adjusting. For several minutes, they ate in silence. It was not uncomfortable. Claire had spent years around people who filled every quiet moment because silence allowed too much truth to enter the room. Luca seemed comfortable with truth when it was not asking him to change. She wondered how long that would last. After dinner, he showed her the parts of the house she had not seen. The residence occupied 6 floors of an old stone building near the lake. The lower level contained security room storage and an underground garage. The first 2 floors held offices, formal rooms, and a kitchen large enough to serve a restaurant. The upper floors were private. Luca stopped outside a reinforced door. This room remains locked. What is inside records? Legal records. Some. Claire looked at him. Does anything in that room concern me? No. If that changes, I tell you. She nodded. They continued toward the library. On one wall hung a black and white photograph of a younger man standing beside a cargo ship. Claire recognized Luca's eyes. Your father. Antonio. He looks happy. He had just bought his first warehouse. Luca stood beside her. He was 29. He had borrowed money from 3 relatives who told him he would lose it. Did he? Not then. Claire heard the shift in his voice. Frank Bennett entered the room without being present. She looked at the photograph again. I am sorry. Luca turned toward her. For what? For what my father did. You said it belongs to him. It does. I can still be sorry it happened. Luca's expression became unreadable. Claire moved away from the photograph before he could answer. The following morning she called Mara. Her friend answered on the first ring. Say the word and I am in my car. I am safe. That was not the word. Claire sat beside the bedroom window with coffee warming her hands. Snow covered the private garden below. I married him legally. I know. You said that 3 times yesterday. I need you to understand this was not symbolic. There are documents, lawyers, a judge. Claire, I work in an emergency room. I understand that paperwork can make bad decisions official. Claire closed her eyes. It did not feel like a bad decision. That is more concerning. Despite herself, Claire laughed. It came out small and tired. Mara went quiet. You laughed. I know. Are you being held against your will? No. Did anyone threaten you? Not directly. Indirectly? Claire looked toward the door. There are people who want Luca to lose control of his family's businesses. Family businesses as in restaurants. Some restaurants, Claire. Shipping, construction, security. And things he says he is moving away from. Mara breathed out slowly. Do you trust him? No. Do you believe him? Mostly. That is a dangerous difference. Claire watched a man in a dark coat cross the garden and disappear through a side door. He tells the truth when lying would be easier. So did your father when the truth made him look powerful? Claire winced. Mara heard the silence. I am not trying to hurt you. I know. I want you to remember that calm men can still be dangerous. I know that too. Call me every day. I will. And send me the address. Claire hesitated. Claire. She sent it. The dinner with Grant Holloway took place 2 nights later in a private club on LaSalle Street. The building had no sign near the entrance. A brass plate beside the door carried only a number. Inside, dark wood covered the walls. Men spoke quietly beneath low lights. Every person Claire passed looked as if they had arrived knowing exactly who else would be present. Rosa had chosen the navy dress. Claire had chosen not to wear the diamond necklace Luca offered. Instead, she wore her mother's pearl earrings. She was not sure why. Perhaps because she wanted something from the life she had left, even if that life no longer wanted her. Luca noticed them in the car. Those were from the wedding. Yes. You kept them. They belong to me." He looked toward the window. "That is a good reason." Grant Holloway stood when Claire entered the private dining room. He was larger than his photograph suggested. His handshake was firm, his eyes patient. His wife Celeste remained seated. She wore black and watched Claire with an attention that felt neither friendly nor hostile. Mrs. Moretti Grant said, "Claire is fine." His gaze sharpened slightly. Then Grant. Luca held Claire's chair. He did not touch her back when she sat. She noticed that too. The first half of dinner moved through polite conversation. Weather, the city, a museum donation. Grant asked how Claire had met Luca. Claire lifted her glass. On a sidewalk. Celeste's mouth curved. Grant did not smile. At that hour, it was early. "So I heard." Luca set down his fork. Claire answered before he could. "People seem very interested in the hour. Timing matters in business. It matters in marriage, too." Grant leaned back. "And what did the timing mean to you?" Claire held his gaze. "That I had very little time to decide whether the man in front of me was more dangerous than the life behind me." Celeste looked at Luca, and Claire took a drink of water. "I am still collecting evidence." For the first time, Grant smiled. The conversation moved toward shipping access and labor contracts. Luca and Grant spoke in a shorthand Claire did not understand, but she listened to the gaps. Grant never asked directly whether Luca was stable. He asked which supervisors had been replaced. He asked how long 2 warehouse contracts had been renewed. He asked whether Sal still approved internal security appointments. Celeste asked no business questions. She watched every server who entered. When one man approached Luca from behind, Celeste shifted her wine glass to the other hand and turned enough to see him. Claire changed her own position. Celeste noticed. Later, while Grant and Luca discussed a disputed port lease, Celeste asked Claire about her work. "I am a school counselor, private school, public." Celeste looked surprised. "You plan to continue?" "Yes." Luca agreed to that. Claire turned toward her. "I did not ask permission." Celeste studied her for several seconds. Then she reached into her bag and placed a card beside Claire's plate. "My foundation funds crisis programs for children displaced by domestic violence." Claire picked up the card. "I have been trying to expand a similar program. Call me." Grant looked toward his wife. Celeste returned to her meal. In the car, Luca remained quiet until they had traveled 3 blocks. Celeste Holloway spent the first 7 years of her marriage managing intelligence for Grant. Claire looked out the window. "I thought so." "How the exits?" He waited. She watched the exits before she watched the people, Claire said. She also knew which server was new. "You saw that the new server checked table numbers. The others did not." Luca leaned back. "What did she conclude about you? I do not know. She gave you her private number." "She cares about children. She does not give anyone her private number." Claire turned toward him. "Then perhaps she cares about children more than she lets people believe." Luca's attention remained on her. The quality of it had changed. Not admiration exactly. Recognition. Claire looked away before it became something she had to name. The following morning, Diane called. Claire let the phone ring 4 times before answering. "Where are you?" Diane did not say hello. "Safe. That is not an address. It is the only answer you need. Your father has been trying to contact you. He has my number." Diane lowered her voice. "Claire, we need to discuss Vanessa." Claire looked at the snow outside. "No. The wedding was complicated. She wore my dress. Ethan made promises to her. He made promises to me first. Vanessa is not handling this well." Claire almost laughed. Her mother had called because Vanessa was unhappy inside the life she had stolen. "What happened?" Diane hesitated. Ethan has been meeting with your father. He wants access to the new waterfront project. He wanted that before the wedding. You do not know that. I saw them together. Your father trusted him. Claire closed her eyes. There it was again. Trust presented as innocence. What does Vanessa need from me? She needs her sister. No. She needs to face the man she married. Claire. She made one terrible decision. She made hundreds of decisions. She texted him, met him, lied to me, put on my dress, walked into my wedding. Every step was a decision. Diane's voice became colder. You sound very different. I am. You are punishing the whole family. Claire stood. No, I stopped volunteering to be the punishment. Silence filled the line. Diane spoke more carefully. Who are you with? My husband. The word felt strange in Claire's mouth. Not wrong, just newly shaped. Diane inhaled. You married someone? Yes. Who? Claire looked toward the bedroom door. Luca Moretti. The silence that followed was so complete, Claire checked the screen to see whether the call had ended. When Diane spoke again, the control in her voice had cracked. Claire, listen to me. You need to leave wherever you are. Why? That family is dangerous. You know them. I know enough. Does Dad? Another silence. Claire's pulse slowed. Her mother knew something. How much did he tell you about Antonio Moretti? Diane ended the call. Claire stared at the phone. A minute later, Luca entered without knocking, then stopped when he saw her expression. What happened? My mother knows your name. That is not surprising. She was afraid. That is. Claire held up the phone. She ended the call when I mentioned your father. Luca's face became still. I will have Sal review her connections. No. He looked at her. You are not investigating my mother without telling me exactly what you are looking for. I was going to tell you. You were already halfway to the door. Luca stopped. Then he nodded. We review it together. Claire searched his face. Thank you. The words seemed to affect him more than the argument had. That afternoon, Mara sent a video. It had been recorded at the wedding reception by someone seated near the back of the ballroom. Vanessa stood beside Ethan while guests raised champagne glasses around them. Her smile looked fixed. Ethan was not looking at her. He was speaking to Frank near a service door. The audio was poor, but one sentence came through clearly. That was not our agreement. Claire replayed it. Then again. Luca entered the sitting room while she watched it a fourth time. What is it? She handed him the phone. He studied the video. Your fiancé. Former fiancé. He is arguing about money. You can tell that from 6 words I can tell from where he is looking. Claire watched Ethan's eyes. Not at Frank's face. At the folder beneath Frank's arm. What agreement, she asked. Luca returned the phone. Your father's waterfront project. You think Ethan married Vanessa to get closer to it. I think men who betray people for love usually look guilty. And he does not. He looks impatient. Claire sat down. For the first time since the wedding, Vanessa's betrayal looked less like a love story and more like a transaction. The realization did not reduce the pain. It changed its shape. A knock sounded at the door. Sal entered carrying a sealed envelope. His face was tense. We have a problem. Luca opened the envelope. Inside was a photocopy of Claire's marriage settlement. Not the entire document. Only the page listing the financial terms. Claire stood. Who has seen that? 6 people. Luca said. You, me, Sal, the judge, 2 attorneys. 1 attorney has been cleared, Sal said. The other is Owen Mercer. How long has he worked for you? 11 years. Claire looked at Luca. "When did you learn about the leak?" He did not answer quickly enough. Her anger arrived at once. "When yesterday. You knew at dinner. I had a suspicion. You knew before my mother called. I was trying to confirm the source." Claire stepped toward him. "You promised to tell me about anything that touched me directly. I did not want to accuse someone without proof. You could have told me there was a leak. I was handling it." The words entered the room like a slap. Claire's voice became quiet. "My father handled the wedding. My mother handled Vanessa. Ethan handled every question I asked until there was nothing left for me to know." Luca looked at her. "I am not them." "Then stop using their language." Sal moved toward the door. Claire did not look away from Luca. "You do not get to protect me by deciding what truth I am allowed to have." "You are right." The answer came without defense. It stopped her again. Luca continued. "I should have told you immediately. Yes, I will not repeat it. You cannot promise that. I can promise to tell you when I am tempted." Claire stared at him. It was not perfect. It was honest. "Who is Owen Mercer?" "A senior attorney," Sal said. "He was in the room when the contract was drafted. Bring him in." Luca looked at Claire. "This is not a school meeting." "No. In a school meeting, people usually pretend they care about consequences." Sal lowered his head to hide another expression. Luca almost smiled. Almost. Owen Mercer arrived 2 hours later. He was 45, clean-shaven, and dressed in a gray suit that had lost its shape around the shoulders. He entered the study already afraid. Claire sat beside Luca rather than behind him. Owen noticed. Luca placed the copied settlement page on the desk. "Explain." Owen looked at the paper. "I have never seen that copy." That was not the question. Owen's eyes moved toward Claire. She held his gaze. He looked away first. Rourke had paid him through a private account. At first, Owen claimed he had provided only dates and public filing details. Then Sal presented bank records. The truth came apart quickly after that. Owen had sent the settlement terms, the marriage timeline, the judge's name, the identities of the attorneys present. Why, Claire asked. Owen wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "My son has debts." Luca's voice remained flat. "So you sold my wife's financial information. I thought it would be used to challenge the filing. And that made it acceptable." Owen looked at Claire. "No." Luca removed his building access legal authority and contact with all Moretti businesses. There was no shouting, no threat. That frightened Owen more. After he was escorted out, Claire remained in the study. Was he the only source? Sal answered too quickly. "We believe so." Claire looked at him. Sal's face remained calm. His eyes did not. She stored the moment without comment. That night, Claire found Luca in the library. He stood beneath the photograph of his father reading a report. "You should sleep," he said. "So should you. I am working. So am I." He closed the folder. Claire approached the table. "If Rourke has the settlement, he will say I married you for money." "Yes. If he has the timeline, he will say the decision was impossible to make freely." "Yes. If he knows about my father, he can make the whole thing look arranged." Luca nodded. "Grant Holloway is the person he needs most. Then I want to speak to Holloway again." "No." Claire waited. Luca exhaled. "That was automatic." "Yes, I am working on it. Work faster." This time he smiled. It was brief and tired but unmistakable. Claire had not seen him smile before. It changed his face more than she expected. For 1 second, he looked younger. Then the expression disappeared. "I will arrange the meeting," he said. I want to go alone. No. Automatic again. No. Considered. Claire leaned against the table. If you come, Holloway sees a husband controlling the message. If Sal comes, he sees the organization defending itself. If I go alone, he sees a woman who can speak without permission. Holloway is not harmless. Neither am I. Luca's gaze lowered to her hands. They were steady. You believe that? Now, he said. Claire thought about the bridal suite, the service corridor, the freezing street. I am beginning to. He stepped closer. There was no desk between them. No table. Claire became aware of the space he occupied and the way he never used it to force her backward. A fine chain rested across the folder in his hand. What is that, a tracking device? Claire's expression changed. For the meeting, you agreed to visible security. It is visible now. He held it out. The device had been built into a small silver pendant. Claire took it. The clasp was too small for her fingers. Luca raised one hand, then stopped. May I? The question was quiet. Claire turned around. He moved her hair over one shoulder. His fingers brushed the back of her neck as he fastened the chain. The touch lasted less than a second. Neither of them moved away. Claire could hear his breathing behind her, slow, controlled. She turned. They stood close enough that she could see the faint scar near his jaw. Thank you, she said. Luca's eyes remained on hers. For what? For asking. A phone vibrated across the table. The moment broke. Luca picked it up. Sal had sent an image from a city traffic camera. Luca opened it. Claire saw the date first, the morning of her wedding. The time was 3:51 a.m. The photograph showed a black sedan parked 1 block from Harrington House. Luca's sedan. A second image showed him stepping onto the sidewalk. Claire looked from the screen to his face. You were there almost an hour before I found you. Yes. You said you went to observe my father. I did. The screen changed. Another image appeared. Luca was speaking to a man outside the service entrance of the wedding venue. Claire recognized the man. He had been one of Frank's private drivers. Her hand closed around the silver pendant. Who is that? Luca did not answer. Claire looked at him. Tell me why you were speaking to my father's driver before my wedding. Luca lowered the phone. The distance between them returned all at once. I need to explain the entire morning. Claire removed the pendant from her neck and placed it on the table. Then start at the beginning. Luca stood across from Claire in the library, the traffic camera image glowing between them. Outside, snow pressed against the windows in thin white sheets. The city beyond the glass had disappeared, leaving the room suspended in darkness and reflected light. Luca placed both hands on the table. 8 months ago, Sal found a financial record connected to the collapse of my father's waterfront development. The deal, my father destroyed. Yes. We verified the account, then the transfer, then the ownership structure behind the company that bought the property after the collapse. Every path led back to Frank Bennett. Claire looked at the photograph again. And this morning I learned your father would be at Harrington House. So you followed him. I sent someone to confirm his arrival. The driver. He worked for your father for 9 years. He also owed money to a company connected to us. Claire's eyes hardened. You used his debt. I paid it. That is not what I asked. Luca met her gaze. Yes, I used it. The answer was clean, but it carried no comfort. Claire moved away from the table. What did you want from my father? To see how he reacted when he realized I knew. You went there to threaten him. I went there to decide whether threatening him was necessary. She turned. That is a very careful distinction. It is the truth. The truth is, you were outside my wedding because you were hunting my father. Luca did not deny it. Claire felt the room tighten around her. The marriage license, the judge, the deadline, the sidewalk. Every moment remained real, but the order had changed. That was the danger. Nothing had been invented. Nothing had to be. All someone had to do was move one truth beside another and allow suspicion to finish the work. "Did you know the wedding belonged to me?" Claire asked. "No. Did you know Frank Bennett had 2 daughters? Yes. Did you know one of them was getting married? I knew there was a Bennett wedding. I did not know which daughter." Claire stared at him. "That should have mattered when I gave you my name." "It did. When after the license was filed." "No. When did it matter to you?" Luca drew a slow breath. "When Sal said your father's name, I wondered whether the meeting had been arranged. By me? By anyone?" Claire laughed softly. She hated the sound. "I walked out of a ballroom because my sister was wearing my wedding dress." "I know. You saw me freezing on the street." "I know. And some part of you still believed it might have been theater." "Yes." The honesty cut more deeply than a lie would have. Claire stepped back. Luca moved toward her, then stopped. "I did not act on that suspicion. You married me while holding it. I had less than an hour. So did I." The words struck him. Claire removed her mother's pearl earrings and placed them beside the pendant. One symbol from her old life, one from the new. Both rested between them like evidence. "I need distance." Luca's expression changed. "Claire, I am not ending the agreement." "Then stay here." "No. Rourke has your name. Owen gave him your financial terms. Someone photographed me near your wedding. I understand the danger. You understand part of it." She looked directly at him. "And you still believe that gives you the right to decide where I sleep?" His jaw tightened. Claire saw the instinct rise in him. Command, control, protection sharpened into authority. Then he forced it down. "Where will you go, Maras? I will place security outside. You will tell me who they are." "Yes. They do not enter the building." "Agreed. They do not follow me into work." Luca hesitated. Claire picked up her phone. "Agreed," he said. She turned toward the door. "Claire." She stopped. Luca stood beneath the photograph of his father. For the first time since she met him, he looked uncertain. "I did not choose you because of Frank Bennett. I believe that." His eyes searched her face. "Then why are you leaving?" "Because believing one thing does not repair everything around it." Mara opened her apartment door wearing hospital scrubs and holding a wooden spoon. She looked at Claire, then at the 2 security men standing near the elevator. "Did you bring the Mafia?" "They are staying outside." Mara pointed the spoon at them. "If either of you enters without permission, I own a cast-iron pan and very little fear." Neither man responded. Mara pulled Claire inside. The apartment smelled like garlic coffee and laundry detergent. Shoes crowded the entrance. Medical books were stacked beneath a crooked lamp. A blanket Claire had given Mara 3 Christmases earlier lay across the couch. The room was small. It was also the first place Claire had entered in days that did not feel like someone else's territory. Mara watched her place a small bag on the floor. "You left him. Temporarily. Did he hurt you?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No." "Did he lie?" Claire considered it. "He told the truth too late." Mara lowered the spoon. "That sounds familiar." Claire looked toward the window. "He was near the wedding before he met me. He was investigating my father. And now you are wondering whether any of it was an accident. I know meeting him was an accident." But you do not know what he would have done if you had not appeared. Claire sat on the couch. No. Mara went into the kitchen and returned with a bowl of pasta. Eat. I am not hungry. Your judgment has already produced one marriage this week. I am not allowing low blood sugar into the discussion. Claire took the bowl. For several minutes, the only sound was the scrape of the fork against ceramic. Mara sat opposite her. Do you love him? Claire nearly dropped the fork. I have known him for 6 days. That was not a no. It was a reminder that 6 days is not enough time. People betray each other after 20 years. Time does not always make the truth clearer. Claire looked down at the food. I do not love him. Do you want to? Claire set the bowl aside. I want to know which parts of my life are mine before I give another part away. The following afternoon, someone knocked at Mara's door. Not Luca. Vanessa stood in the hallway wearing a wool coat over a silk blouse. Snow had melted in her hair. Dark glasses covered her eyes, though the corridor had no windows. Mara looked at Claire. I can close the door. Vanessa removed the glasses. Her eyes were swollen. Claire had seen her sister cry many times, usually in rooms where someone else was expected to solve the reason. Let her in. Vanessa entered slowly. Her gaze moved across the apartment, taking in the narrow hallway and the small living room. You are staying here for now. Mom said you married Luca Moretti. Claire said nothing. Vanessa folded her arms. Is it true? Yes. You married a man you met that morning. Yes. Vanessa looked stunned. The reaction almost made Claire laugh. You do not get to judge the speed of my wedding. Vanessa flinched. Mara moved toward the kitchen but remained close enough to hear. Claire gestured toward the chair. Vanessa sat. For a few seconds, neither sister spoke. Then Vanessa began. Ethan left. When? Last night. Claire waited. He took documents from Dad's office, files from the waterfront development. Why did he have access? Dad trusted him. Claire felt something cold settle in her chest. What did Ethan promise you? Vanessa looked away. That he loved me. What else? Silence. Vanessa. He said Dad would bring him into the project after the wedding, and marrying you helped with that. He said Frank always saw me as the daughter who understood people. Claire almost admired the precision of the manipulation. Ethan had identified the story Vanessa wanted to believe and built a future inside it. How long? Vanessa pressed her lips together. 3 months. Claire felt the answer physically, not because it surprised her, because numbers gave betrayal a structure. 3 months of phone calls, 3 months of private meetings, 3 months of Vanessa sitting across from her while Claire planned a wedding. Who started it? Vanessa's eyes filled. Does that matter? Yes. He kissed me. And you stopped him. Vanessa shook her head. Claire looked away. Outside the window, snow gathered on the fire escape. Did you love him? Vanessa's voice broke. I thought I did. That is not an answer. I loved that he chose me. Claire turned back. There it was. The truth beneath everything. Not love. Selection. Vanessa had spent her entire life needing to be the person someone chose first. Ethan had understood that need and used it. Claire could see it clearly. Understanding did not make forgiveness appear. You let me stand in that room, Claire said. You let me plan every table, every flower, and every promise while you knew. Vanessa wiped her face. I wanted to tell you. You had 3 months. Mom said it would destroy the family. Mom meant it would embarrass her. Vanessa looked at the floor. I did not know Ethan was using me. You knew you were hurting me. The words remained in the room. Vanessa reached for Claire's hand. Claire moved hers away. What do you want? I need help. Of course you do. Vanessa's face tightened. Dad thinks Ethan copied account records. If he gives them to the wrong person, the project could collapse. Like Antonio Moretti's project. Vanessa looked up sharply. You know about that, I know enough. Dad said the Morettis are twisting what happened. Dad says whatever keeps him standing. Vanessa began to cry again. Please, Claire. Claire rose. For most of her life, those words had been enough. Please, Claire. Fix it, Claire. Be reasonable, Claire. She felt the old reflex move through her. Then it reached the place inside her that had changed and stopped. You took my place because you thought my life was something you could wear. Vanessa stood. I am sorry. You are sorry the life did not fit. That is not fair. No, Claire said quietly. It is not. She walked to the door and opened it. Vanessa stared at her. You are really sending me away. I am allowing you to leave without solving this for you. Vanessa stepped into the hallway. Before Claire closed the door, her sister turned. Ethan spoke to someone named Rourke. Claire's hand tightened on the doorknob. When I saw the name on his phone 2 weeks before the wedding. Why did you not say that first? Because I did not know it mattered. Claire shut the door and called Luca. He answered before the second ring. Where are you? At Mara's. I know. She closed her eyes. You are monitoring my location. The security team reports arrivals. Vanessa came here. Silence. What did she want? Ethan stole files from my father's project. He has been speaking to Rourke. Luca's voice sharpened. Are you alone? Mara is here. Security is outside. I am coming. Claire looked through the window at the street below. No. Claire. Send Sal. I need information, not protection. Another pause. All right. Sal arrived 40 minutes later carrying a leather folder. Mara made coffee and remained in the room. Sal did not object. Claire told him everything Vanessa had said. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he opened the folder. Ethan Caldwell's firm represents 3 companies connected to your father's new development. Why does Rourke care about it? The property borders a freight corridor controlled by Moretti Shipping. If Frank completes the project, he gains leverage over one of our most profitable legal routes, and Ethan can give Rourke access. Yes. Claire looked at the financial diagrams. This is not about my marriage. It may have started before your marriage. Sal's wording caught her attention. What are you not saying? Sal's face remained calm. Nothing. You answered too quickly. Mara glanced between them. Sal closed the folder. There are parts of the situation we have not verified. Claire leaned forward. Does Luca know? He knows what I know. That was not the question. Sal held her gaze. Yes. Claire stood. Then tell him I am done receiving partial truths. Sal did not move. There is someone who may be able to confirm Ethan's connection to Rourke. Who? Caroline Bishop. Luca's former fiancée contacted Claire that evening from an unknown number. Her voice sounded careful and exhausted. I was told you wanted the truth. I want your version of it. Caroline laughed softly. That is more honest than what most people ask. She agreed to meet in a private room at a hotel near O'Hare. Claire went without Luca. His security remained outside the building, visible as promised. Caroline was already seated when Claire entered. She was elegant in a pale coat, but fear had stripped the polish from her face. I did not leave Luca for another man, she said. You boarded a plane with one. Thomas helped me leave. Who paid him, Rourke? Claire sat across from her. Caroline placed a flash drive on the table. Rourke cleared Thomas's debts and promised me protection. He said Luca's succession would fail without the marriage. He said the organization would transfer peacefully. And you believed him. I wanted to. Why, Caroline looked down. Because Luca had people watching me. Claire's jaw tightened. Did you know? Not at first. Why was he watching you? Because I met with Rourke twice. Did Luca confront you? No. He increased security and said nothing. Claire understood the pattern immediately. Protection without truth. Control disguised as necessity. Caroline pushed the drive closer. These are the payment records. Rourke also paid a private investigator to obtain traffic images from the morning of your wedding. Why to construct a timeline? Claire stared at her. A timeline that makes it look planned. Yes. Were the images altered? Some timestamps were adjusted. Others were real. Again, the lie made of truth. Claire placed the drive inside her bag. Why help me? Because Rourke said Luca would lose control. He did not tell me people would die. Has someone died? Caroline's eyes filled with fear. Not yet. A sound came from the hallway, a door closing. Caroline stood too quickly. He knows I contacted you. Who? But Caroline was already moving toward the second exit. Claire followed her into the corridor. The hallway was empty. By the time they reached the stairwell, Caroline had disappeared through a service door. Claire took out her phone. No signal. She turned toward the elevator. A man stood at the far end of the corridor. Dark coat, gloved hands. He looked at Claire's bag. Mrs. Moretti. Claire did not answer. Give me the drive. Her pulse began to climb. She pressed the emergency button on the wall. Nothing happened. The man walked closer. Claire reached into her bag as though surrendering the drive. Instead, she pressed the side button on her phone 3 times. The emergency signal went to Mara Luca and the visible security team downstairs. The files are already uploaded, Claire said. The man stopped. If I fail to make a call in 2 minutes, copies go to federal investigators in 3 newsrooms. He studied her face. You are lying. Claire heard footsteps in the stairwell below. Then you have less than 2 minutes to find out. The man's hand moved beneath his coat. Claire held his gaze. The stairwell door burst open. 2 security men entered with weapons drawn. The stranger stepped backward, then disappeared through a service exit before they reached him. Luca arrived minutes later. His coat was open. Snow melted across his shoulders. Anger sharpened every line of his face. He walked directly to Claire. Are you hurt? No. Did he touch you? No. His eyes moved over her anyway, checking. Claire waited for the accusation. Why did you come alone? Why did you take the risk? It never came. Luca held out his hand. Tell me what you found. Claire gave him the flash drive. At the Moretti residence, they examined the records together. Payments to Thomas Vale, payments to the investigator who obtained the traffic footage, transfers through a consulting company connected to Rourke. 1 payment carried an internal authorization code. Salvatore De Luca. Luca stared at the screen. The room seemed to lose all warmth. Sal raised me, he said. Claire stood beside him. So did my father. Luca looked at her. For once, neither of them had a strategy. Only the evidence. He reached toward her hand, then stopped before touching it. Claire closed the space herself. Her fingers wrapped around his. The study door opened. Sal entered without knocking. He looked at their joined hands, then at the screen. Slowly, he removed a pistol from beneath his coat and placed it on the desk. He pushed it toward Luca. Everything she found is true. Luca released Claire's hand. Sal's voice became quieter. But Rourke does not know the worst thing I gave him. The words settled over the study. Luca stood behind the desk with one hand resting beside the pistol Sal had placed there. Claire remained near the screen, the payment record still glowing in front of her. Sal looked older than he had an hour earlier. Not weaker, exposed. Luca's voice came quietly. Sit down. Sal did not move. I would rather stand. Claire felt the echo of her own words from the first morning in this house. Luca heard it too. His eyes shifted toward her, then returned to Sal. Start talking. Sal drew a breath. 6 years ago, your father authorized an operation at Pier 19. A shipment had been taken. Antonio believed the men responsible were using the night crew to move goods through a warehouse we controlled. Luca's expression did not change. I remember the investigation. You remember the version we gave you? Claire watched Sal's hands. They were clasped behind his back, but his right thumb kept pressing into his left palm. The operation was mine. Sal continued. Antonio approved surveillance. I expanded it without permission. What did you do? Luca asked. I sent men inside. How many? 4, armed. Yes. The room became smaller. Sal looked toward the pistol on the desk. One of the night workers entered through the loading bay. His name was Daniel Ruiz. He was 37 years old, married, 2 children. Claire already knew the end before Sal said it. He was not involved, Sal said. He saw men with weapons and ran. One of ours fired. Luca's face went still in a way Claire had learned to fear. Did he die there? Yes. And my father covered it. He paid the family. He arranged for the police report to list it as an attempted robbery by unknown men. He destroyed the internal record. But not all of it. Sal shook his head. I kept a copy. Why, I told myself it was insurance. Luca's hand closed against the desk. Against my father. Against anyone. Sal's voice cracked for the first time. I was afraid Antonio would decide I had become a liability. I was afraid the family would erase me the way we erased the report. So you kept proof of an innocent man's death? Yes. And Rourke found it 3 years ago. Luca moved around the desk. Sal did not step back. What did he ask for first? A schedule. 1 warehouse inspection. And then names of contractors. Internal disputes. Which associates doubted you after Antonio died? Luca's jaw tightened. You gave him my house. I gave him pieces. You gave him enough to build a door. Sal lowered his eyes. Yes. Claire watched the 2 men stand less than 6 feet apart. One had raised the other. One had betrayed the other in increments small enough to excuse until the full shape became impossible to deny. What was the worst thing? Claire asked. Sal looked at her. The succession archive. Luca turned. What part? The sealed addendum to Antonio's will. The silence that followed felt physical. Claire saw something shift in Luca's face. Not fear. Recognition. What is in the addendum? She asked. Luca answered without looking at her. A contingency clause. Sal nodded. If the marriage is judged fraudulent by a majority of the senior alliance, the protected assets do not remain with Luca. They return to Rourke. Claire asked. No, Luca said. They are placed under temporary collective control. For how long? Until a successor is confirmed. Claire looked at Sal. And Rourke knows how to trigger it. He knows the language, the threshold, and the names of every person whose vote matters. Luca walked to the window. Outside, the snow had stopped. The garden lay beneath a white silence. Claire looked at Sal. Why does he not know you kept the original evidence from Pier 19? Because I gave him a copy. The original includes Antonio's handwritten instruction after the shooting. What instruction? Sal swallowed. To tell the truth. Luca turned sharply. Sal continued. Your father wanted to report it. I convinced him not to. I told him the family would collapse, that the police would use the death to destroy every legitimate business we had. Antonio agreed to the cover story, but he wrote a statement accepting responsibility and ordered me to preserve it. You said he destroyed the record. I lied. Luca crossed the room. His fist struck Sal's face before Claire saw him move. Sal fell against the edge of a chair and caught himself. The pistol remained on the desk. Nobody reached for it. Luca stood over him, breathing hard. You let me believe my father buried an innocent man without hesitation. Sal touched the blood at his mouth. He did bury it. Because you convinced him. Yes, you let me build my entire understanding of him around a lie. Sal straightened. I was ashamed. Luca hit him again. This time Sal went to one knee. Claire stepped forward. Luca. He did not look at her. She moved between them. Luca. His eyes found hers. There was rage in them, but beneath it was something worse. Grief. Claire held his gaze. If you punish him now, Rourke still owns the truth. Luca's breathing slowed. Behind her, Sal rose carefully. Luca looked past Claire. You will record everything. Sal nodded. You will surrender every file, every account, and every contact you gave Rourke. Yes. You will testify about Pier 19. Sal's face changed. That will expose Antonio. It will expose all of us. Luca's voice became colder. You wanted the truth preserved. Now you will live long enough to say it. Sal looked at the floor. Do you intend to forgive me? Luca stared at him. I do not know. Sal closed his eyes briefly. Luca continued. Today I need the truth more than I need an answer. Claire felt the words move through the room. No absolution. No revenge. Only consequence. Sal recorded his confession before sunrise. 3 attorneys sat across from him in the conference room where Claire and Luca had been married. A camera rested on the table. Every answer was repeated, dated, and verified. Claire listened from the back of the room. Sal described the payment structure, the blackmail, the schedules, and the names of men he had compromised. He described Pier 19 without asking anyone to reduce what he had done. When he finished, Luca removed the Moretti ring from Sal's hand. It was heavy silver and worn smooth at the edges. Sal placed it on the table. Luca did not touch it. By 8 in the morning, Malcolm Rourke had called a formal meeting of the Senior Alliance. Grant Holloway would attend. So would Peter Rinaldi, Joseph Kane, and 6 men whose support could determine whether Luca remained in control. Rourke had scheduled the meeting for the following evening at the Blackstone Hotel. He believed the sealed addendum gave him the final weapon. He did not know Sal had confessed. He did not know Claire had Caroline's records. He did not know the original traffic files were already being authenticated by an independent examiner chosen by Holloway. Claire stood in Luca's study before a wall covered in documents. The evidence had been arranged chronologically. At first, Luca's attorneys had organized it by category. Financial records in one section, surveillance in another, witness statements in a third. Claire changed everything. People do not understand files, she said. They understand sequence. Victor Hale, one of the senior attorneys, looked toward Luca. Luca nodded. Claire placed the first photograph on the wall. Caroline boarding the flight. Then the payment to Thomas Vale. Then the consulting company. Then Rourke's request for the traffic footage. Then the altered timestamp. Then Owen Mercer's payments. Then Sal's confession. She stepped back. Rourke's argument depends on making the wedding look like the beginning. Luca studied the wall. It was not. No, it was the middle. Claire pointed toward Caroline's flight. He was working against you before I appeared. He paid to remove your fiancée. He knew the inheritance deadline. When I married you, he changed the story because his first plan failed. Victor adjusted his glasses. He will claim Caroline acted independently. Then let him, Claire said. We have the payments. He will challenge her credibility. He should. We should do it first. The room went quiet. Claire looked at each man. We do not hide the parts that make us uncomfortable. We present them before he can. Luca understood immediately. Caroline took money. Yes. Owen sold information. Yes. Sal betrayed us. Yes. My father covered a killing. Claire's voice softened. Yes. Victor looked uneasy. That could damage the organization beyond repair. Claire turned toward him. If Rourke reveals it, it becomes proof that Luca hides corruption. If Luca reveals it, it becomes proof that Rourke built his power through blackmail. Luca stood beside her, and Daniel Ruiz Claire looked at Sal's recorded statement on the desk. His family receives the truth before anyone in that room. Luca nodded. I will contact them, not through an attorney. His eyes met hers. No. Claire remained beside the evidence wall after the others left. Luca closed the study door. You made that look simple. It is not simple. You made it clear. That is different. He approached her. The bruise across his knuckles had begun to darken. Claire looked at his hand. Does it hurt? Yes. Good. His mouth moved slightly. She touched his fingers with care. Luca watched her. You stopped me. You were about to make a decision for your anger. I wanted to kill him. I know. I still might. Claire released his hand. Then it would not be justice. It would be relief. Luca looked toward the wall. He raised me after my mother died. And he betrayed you. Yes. Both things are true. He lowered his head. Claire understood the weight of that sentence. Vanessa was still her sister. Frank was still her father. Love did not erase betrayal. Betrayal did not erase history. Human beings rarely offered the mercy of becoming only one thing. Luca looked at her again. You should not attend tomorrow. Claire sighed. He raised one hand. I know how that sounds. Then why say it? Because Rourke may target you directly. He already has. He will use your father. Then I need to speak to my father before he does. Frank Bennett agreed to meet Claire at his office that afternoon. The building stood near the financial district, 30 floors of blue glass overlooking the river. Claire had visited it as a child and remembered believing that her father owned the entire sky. Now the lobby felt cold. Frank waited behind his desk. Diane stood near the window. Claire stopped inside the doorway. I asked to meet Dad alone. Diane folded her arms. This concerns the family. Claire looked at her. No, it concerns the things you both did while using that word. Frank rose. Claire. She placed a folder on the desk. Inside were the records Ethan had taken, the old waterfront transfers and Antonio Moretti's preserved statement. Frank opened the first page. His face changed before he reached the second. Where did you get this? Does it matter? These documents were confidential. They describe fraud. They describe a failed development. They describe you convincing investors to withdraw after Antonio Moretti placed his properties as collateral. Frank closed the folder. You do not understand what that deal was. Then explain it. He looked toward Diane. Claire followed his eyes. You knew. Diane's expression tightened. I knew there had been a dispute. Did you know Dad promised Antonio the investment was safe? Your father made a business decision. Claire laughed softly. The sound made Diane flinch. There it is again. A phrase clean enough to cover anything. Frank stepped around the desk. Antonio Moretti was not an innocent man. I did not say he was. He used pressure. He threatened competitors. He expected everyone around him to accept the risks he created. And that gave you permission to lie. Frank's voice rose. I had a family to protect. Claire looked at Diane, then at the office around them. The expensive wood, the framed awards, the river beneath the windows. You protected this. Frank went still. Claire opened the folder again and placed the call transcript in front of him. You told him the deal was secure at 9:14 in the morning. At 11:30 you signed the withdrawal agreement. Frank looked down. Claire. Read it. I know what it says. Then say it. Diane stepped forward. This is cruel. Claire turned. No. Cruel was asking me to leave my wedding through the kitchen so Vanessa could use my flowers. Diane's face hardened. We were trying to prevent public humiliation. Mine did not count because it happened behind a closed door. No one answered. Claire looked back at Frank. Rourke has these records. Ethan gave him access to your current development. Tomorrow Rourke will use your name to challenge Luca's marriage and control the waterfront corridor. Frank sat down slowly. What do you want from me? A sworn statement. Diane inhaled sharply. Absolutely not. Claire ignored her. You admit what you did to Antonio. You explain Ethan's access. You identify every account connected to the current project. Frank stared at her. And if I refuse, Rourke tells the story for you. You would destroy your father. Claire felt the old wound open. Not because the accusation was true, because a part of her had been trained to believe it. She leaned closer. I am giving you one chance to stop destroying everyone else. Frank looked at the transcript. His shoulders lowered. For the first time, he did not appear important. He appeared tired. If I testify, will you forgive me? Claire's answer came without hesitation. No. Diane whispered her name. Claire continued. It will not return my wedding. It will not change what you did to Antonio. It will not make you the father I needed. Frank's eyes lifted. Then why should I do it? Because it is true. The office fell silent. Frank looked down again. After a long moment, he reached for the phone. I will call my attorney. The Blackstone conference room overlooked a frozen stretch of the river. By 7 the following evening, every chair at the long table was occupied. Rourke sat near the center. He wore a dark blue suit and the calm expression of a man certain he had already won. Holloway sat across from him. Celeste was not present, but Claire knew she had reviewed every document Grant carried. Luca entered with Claire beside him. The room noticed her first. That was useful. Rourke stood. Mrs. Moretti. Mr. Rourke. His eyes moved across her face. You look well. You look prepared. A faint smile touched his mouth. Luca held Claire's chair. She sat beside him. Sal's seat remained empty. Rourke began with the marriage timeline. He displayed the traffic images. Luca near Harrington House, the Bennett driver, Claire leaving in a wedding dress, the courthouse filing. Each fact appeared clean and undeniable. Rourke spoke without raising his voice. Luca Moretti possessed evidence against Frank Bennett for 8 months. On the morning he expected Bennett to attend a wedding, Luca positioned himself near the venue. Within 2 hours, he married Bennett's daughter under a financial contract. He looked around the table. We are expected to accept this as coincidence. Claire let him continue. He presented the settlement page Owen had leaked. He presented the sealed contingency clause. He described Claire as emotionally distressed and legally vulnerable. Luca's hand tightened beneath the table. Claire placed 2 fingers over his wrist. Not to comfort him, to keep him still. Rourke turned toward her. No offense is intended, Mrs. Moretti. You were placed in an impossible situation. Claire stood. You keep describing me as if I am not in the room. Rourke leaned back. Then speak. Claire walked to the center of the table. The marriage began as a contract. Several men shifted. Rourke smiled. Claire continued. I was emotionally distressed. I had less than an hour to make a decision. Luca had investigated my father and was near the wedding venue before he met me. Luca's attorneys remained silent. Rourke's smile faded slightly. Claire looked toward Holloway. All of that is true. She placed Caroline's payment records on the table. This is also true. Holloway opened the file. Claire explained the transfers to Thomas Vale. the Nevada consulting company, the payment clearing Caroline's lover's debts. The dates began 9 days before the inheritance deadline. Rourke's first strategy was to remove Luca's fiancée, Claire said. When Luca married someone else, he needed a new strategy. Rourke's voice sharpened. Caroline Bishop is a thief and a liar. Yes, Claire said. She accepted money and concealed it. Her statement includes both facts. Holloway looked up. Rourke said nothing. Claire placed the traffic analysis beside the first file. Some images are real, 2 timestamps are not. Peter Rinaldi examined the examiner's report. Who altered them? A private investigator named Aaron Sears. Rourke laughed. A man paid to say whatever the Morettis need. Claire pressed a button on the table. A recording began. Sears's voice filled the room. He identified Rourke's attorney. He identified the payment. He described changing the extraction time to make Luca's arrival appear earlier. When the recording ended, Holloway looked at Rourke. If your case was strong, why did you need manufactured evidence? Rourke's face hardened. The investigator acted beyond instructions. Luca spoke for the first time. Then you will not object to the payment records. Victor distributed another file. Rourke opened it and stopped. Claire saw the moment he recognized Sal's authorization codes. You relied on information from inside the Moretti house, Luca said. Rourke closed the file. That is an accusation. The conference room door opened. Sal entered. A bruise marked his jaw. He wore no family ring. Rourke's composure cracked. Sal took the empty chair at the far end. I gave Malcolm Rourke internal schedules, financial records, and the sealed succession addendum. Several voices rose at once. Holloway lifted one hand. The room quieted. Sal continued. He obtained my cooperation through blackmail connected to the death of Daniel Ruiz at Pier 19. Rourke stood. You do not have to say another word. Sal looked at him. That is what you told me the first time. Rourke's face changed. Not much. Enough. Sal described the Operation Antonio's statement and the preserved original file. He admitted every part of his betrayal. He did not ask anyone to understand. When he finished, Luca placed Antonio's handwritten statement on the table. My father accepted responsibility for the cover story. I accept responsibility for bringing the truth forward now. Rinaldi stared at him. You understand what this admission could cost? Yes. And you are presenting it voluntarily? Yes. Rourke struck the table with his palm. This has nothing to do with the marriage. Claire looked at him. It has everything to do with how you built your argument. She distributed the final folder. Ethan Caldwell's communications, his access to Frank's development records, his messages with Rourke, his promise that marrying Vanessa would place him closer to the Bennett waterfront project. Rourke read the first page and looked toward Claire. She held his gaze. You did not create my sister's betrayal, she said. You simply found a man willing to profit from it. Holloway closed the folder. The room became quiet. Rourke looked around the table. He searched for support and found calculation instead. Peter Rinaldi stood first. My position remains neutral until the legal investigation concludes. Joseph Kane followed. So does mine. Another associate closed his folder and moved it away from Rourke's side of the table. Then another. Holloway remained seated. Rourke looked at him. Grant. Holloway's expression did not change. You offered me certainty. I offered you the truth. No, Holloway said. You offered me evidence you did not believe could survive examination. Rourke turned toward Luca. This is not over. Luca stood. You believed fear was loyalty. His voice remained calm. Now you get to learn the difference. Rourke left without another word. By midnight, 2 of his accounts had been frozen. Before dawn, 3 companies terminated their agreements with him. The legal challenge to Luca's marriage was withdrawn by noon. No one celebrated. The truth had cost too much for that. Claire found Luca alone on the hotel balcony after the meeting. The river moved below them like black glass. Snow had begun again, soft enough to disappear before it touched the ground. Luca stood without a coat. Claire stepped beside him. "You should be inside, so should you." For a while, neither spoke. Then Luca said, "The contract can end tonight." Claire looked at him. "The inheritance is secure. Rourke's challenge is gone. Victor can prepare the settlement before morning. You want me to leave?" "No." The word came too quickly to be strategic. Claire waited. Luca turned toward her. "I want you to have the choice before staying becomes another obligation." Claire studied his face. "Is that what you want?" His control faltered. "No." "What do you want?" He looked toward the river. "I know how to protect assets. I know how to identify threats. I know how to make men afraid enough to reconsider bad decisions." Claire said nothing. Luca looked back at her. "I do not know how to ask someone to stay without making it sound like an order." "Try." Snow gathered in his hair. He did not notice. "I want you to stay when staying is no longer required." Claire felt the words settle somewhere deep. "I am still angry with you. I know. I do not trust you completely. I know." "You will try to protect me by withholding information again." His mouth tightened. "Probably. And I will call you on it." "I know." Claire stepped closer. "But today, when the truth threatened everything you built, you chose to tell it." Luca's gaze lowered to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. "I chose it because you showed me hiding it would make me the man Rourke said I was." "No." Claire touched the bruise across his knuckles. "You chose it because you did not want to be that man." The distance between them disappeared. Claire kissed him first. There was no desperation in it, no bargain, no witness. Luca remained still for one breath, as if giving her time to change her mind. Then his hand touched the side of her face, carefully. The kiss deepened warm against the winter air. For the first time since Claire had walked out of her wedding, she did not feel as though she were escaping one life by entering another. She felt present inside her own choice. Her phone rang. Mara's name appeared on the screen. Claire answered. "Mara." Her friend's voice was tight. "Vanessa is missing." Claire's hand fell from Luca's coat. "What do you mean? She called me 20 minutes ago." She was crying. "Ethan took her to one of your father's old waterfront properties." "Did she say which one?" "No." Then the call ended. Luca was already reaching for his phone. Mara continued. "Police found Ethan's car near an abandoned Bennett warehouse by the Calumet River." Claire looked through the glass doors at the evidence still spread across the conference table. The old waterfront betrayal. The new development. Ethan's stolen files. Different years. The same ground. "Send me the location," Claire said. Luca looked at her. This time he did not tell her to stay behind. He held out her coat. Claire took the coat from Luca's hand. Neither of them spoke as they crossed the hotel lobby. The black sedan was already waiting at the curb. Snow spun through the headlights while Luca's security team divided between two vehicles. Claire climbed into the back seat and called Vanessa again. No answer. She tried Ethan. The call went directly to voicemail. Luca sat beside her, speaking quietly into another phone. "Lock down every Bennett property near the river. Send the location to Chicago police. No one enters until we know where she is." Claire looked at him. "You are involving the police." "Yes. You are not handling this privately." "No." The answer came without hesitation. Claire turned toward the window. Factories, dark warehouses, and frozen lots moved past them. The city became emptier as they traveled south. Streetlights thinned. The river appeared between buildings like a black wound through the snow. Mara sent the location, an abandoned Bennett warehouse near the Calumet River. Claire recognized the address. Frank had mentioned the property at family dinners for years. He called it the foundation of his next development, though Claire had never seen anything there except rusted fencing and concrete. The sedan turned onto an industrial road. Police vehicles stood without sirens near the entrance. Blue light moved across the warehouse walls. Luca reached for the door. Claire caught his wrist. If Ethan has her, he may panic when he sees you. He will panic when he sees anyone. He knows me. That is what concerns me. Claire held his gaze. He wants something from my family. Let me speak first. Luca's face tightened. Every instinct in him resisted. Then he nodded. We go together. A police officer met them near the loading entrance. Caldwell is inside with a woman matching Vanessa Bennett's description. We have movement on the second floor. No visible weapon, but he has threatened to destroy records and harm himself if anyone enters. Claire looked toward the black windows. Has Vanessa spoken? She called once. The line dropped. Luca stepped closer to the officer. You have a negotiator on the way. Claire looked at the warehouse. The upper windows were broken in places. Snow collected along the edges of the loading dock. Wind moved through the damaged building with a low metallic sound. She thought of Vanessa arriving at Mara's apartment. I loved that he chose me. Claire took out her phone and called again. This time Vanessa answered. Her breathing came fast through the speaker. Claire, I am outside. Vanessa began crying. Do not come in. Are you hurt? No. Is Ethan armed? A pause. I do not know. Claire closed her eyes. What does he want? He wants me to sign papers. He says Dad will blame me for the missing files. He says we can still leave together. In the background, Ethan shouted something Claire could not understand. Put me on speaker, Claire said. No, Vanessa do it. A click. The sound changed. Claire heard the open space inside the warehouse. Wind. Footsteps. Ethan's breathing. Claire, he said. His voice sounded nothing like the man who called her every evening at 8. Ethan, you should not be here. You brought my sister to my father's property. She came willingly. Vanessa made a sound that contradicted him. Claire kept her voice level. What are the papers? Nothing that concerns you. They concern Vanessa. She is my wife. Claire felt Luca beside her. Still. Listening. You used that word about me once. Ethan laughed. You married a criminal before my reception ended. You married my sister before mine began. Silence. Claire continued. What do the papers transfer? Ethan did not answer. Vanessa whispered. The holding company. Claire looked at Luca. He understood. Ethan had taken Frank's waterfront documents and needed Vanessa's signature to move ownership through a family-controlled account. You cannot leave with the assets, Claire said. You do not know what I can do. I know Rourke lost his alliances tonight. Ethan went quiet. I know his accounts are being frozen. I know his attorney gave you access codes that no longer work. I know every document you took is already in the hands of investigators. You are lying. That is what the man in the hotel hallway said. Claire heard movement inside. A chair scraped across concrete. Vanessa gasped. Luca's security team shifted near the entrance. Claire raised one hand to stop them. Ethan, listen to me. Rourke cannot protect you. My father has given a sworn statement. The files no longer have value. You ruined everything. No. You mistook people for doors. You are angry because they finally closed. A long silence followed. Then Vanessa screamed. The police moved. Luca entered beside them, keeping Claire behind his shoulder without forcing her back. They climbed a metal staircase into a wide office overlooking the warehouse floor. Ethan stood near a broken window. Vanessa was several feet away, holding one wrist against her chest. Papers covered the floor around them. Ethan held no gun, only a folder and a set of car keys. He looked at Claire as though her presence offended him. "You always thought you were better than us." Claire stepped into the room. "No, I thought loving you meant believing you." His face twisted. "Frank promised me a position, so you slept with Vanessa." She understood ambition. Vanessa looked at him. The last of her hope disappeared. Ethan saw it and reached for her. She stepped away. Police officers moved behind him. He did not resist when they took the keys and placed his hands behind his back. As they led him past Claire, he stopped. "You think Moretti is different?" Claire looked toward Luca. He stood near the doorway, snow melting across his coat, his eyes on her rather than Ethan. "Yes," Claire said, "because when I tell him the truth, he changes what he does with it." Ethan was taken downstairs. Vanessa remained by the window. Claire approached slowly. Her sister's wrist was red but not broken. Her makeup had run. Her expensive coat lay on the floor beside the papers Ethan wanted her to sign. Vanessa looked very young. "I called Mara because I knew you would answer her." Claire said nothing. "I did not think you would come. You are still my sister." Vanessa began to cry. Claire did not embrace her. "Not yet. I am sorry," Vanessa said. "Not because Ethan used me. Not because the marriage failed. I am sorry because I knew what I was doing to you." Claire looked through the broken window at the river. "You stood in my dress while Mom and Dad told me to disappear. I know. You watched me walk out. I know. You let me believe I had imagined every warning sign." Vanessa wiped her face. "I wanted to be the one people chose, and I was supposed to pay for that." Vanessa lowered her head. "Yes." Claire felt the pain remain where it was. An apology did not remove it. But for the first time, Vanessa was not asking Claire to make the pain easier for her. "Can you forgive me?" Vanessa asked. "Not today." Vanessa nodded through tears. Maybe someday, Claire looked at her sister. Maybe. But we will not go back to what we were. What were we? Claire considered the question. "I carried you. You called it closeness." Vanessa closed her eyes. Claire took the coat from the floor and placed it around her shoulders. It was not forgiveness. It was warmth. Diane arrived at the hospital an hour later. She moved quickly through the waiting room in a camel coat, her face composed for the nurses, the officers, and anyone else who might recognize her. She went directly to Vanessa. Then she saw Claire beside Luca. Her expression hardened. "What have you done?" Claire almost admired the speed with which her mother found the wrong person to blame. "Ethan took Vanessa to the warehouse. This family would not be under investigation if you had not involved the Morettis." Luca started to speak. Claire touched his arm. She faced Diane. "People are talking, aren't they?" Diane looked around the waiting room. "This is not the place. That is always your answer when the truth has witnesses." Claire. "They were talking while I walked through a kitchen in a wedding dress. You only care now because they are saying it about you." Diane's composure cracked. "I tried to hold this family together. No. You held the picture together." Vanessa looked toward their mother. Diane turned to her. "You need rest. I need you to stop speaking for me," Vanessa said. The word surprised all of them. Diane stared at her daughters. For the first time, neither moved to make the moment easier. Claire took Luca's hand and left the waiting room. Frank gave his sworn statement 2 days later. The investigation into Ethan's financial activity expanded. Rourke's companies were searched. Several of his closest allies began negotiating with prosecutors before his name appeared publicly. Frank lost clients within a week. His firm removed him from active leadership. 3 months later, he asked Claire to meet him at a coffee shop near Lincoln Park. He arrived early and chose a table by the window. He wore no tie. Without the office and the suit, he looked smaller. "I completed the final statement yesterday," he said. "I know. My attorneys believe I may avoid prison." Claire stirred her coffee. "That is not the same as avoiding consequences." "No." He looked down at his hands. "I spent my life believing that providing for a family was the same as loving one." Claire watched snow melt against the window. "It is not. I know that now. You knew parts of it before." Frank accepted the correction. "Yes." He did not ask for forgiveness. That was why Claire remained at the table. They spoke for 20 minutes. Nothing was repaired. Nothing was hidden. It was the most honest conversation they had ever had. Sal left the Moretti residence at the end of winter. He surrendered his authority, his accounts, and every private connection attached to the family. He agreed to testify about Pier 19 and Rourke's blackmail operation. On his final morning, he met Luca in the front hall. Claire watched from the staircase. Sal held Antonio's watch in his palm. "Your father gave me this when you were born." Luca did not take it. "He trusted you." "Yes." "You betrayed him too." "Yes." Sal held the watch out. "I do not have the right to keep it." Luca accepted it. He did not embrace Sal. He did not offer forgiveness. Sal looked toward Claire. "You taught him to open the doors." Claire shook her head. "He chose to." Sal nodded. Then he walked outside alone. By spring, Claire had returned to Roosevelt Elementary. On her first morning, 20 children asked where she had been. None cared about the newspaper photographs or the Moretti name. One girl waited until the others left. "My mom says people go away when families break." Claire sat beside her. "Some people do. Do they come back?" "Sometimes." The girl looked at her shoes. "What if they do not?" Claire answered carefully. "Then we help you build a safe place with the people who stay." Using part of the money legally assigned to her through the marriage contract, Claire created a foundation for children facing eviction, domestic violence, and sudden family separation. She did not use Moretti money connected to hidden accounts. Luca respected the boundary. He visited the school once without an entourage. A boy looked at his dark coat and asked, "Are you important?" Claire stood in the doorway. "Sometimes." Luca looked toward her. "She is more important here." 1 year after the morning they married Claire, and Luca returned to the same conference room. The fluorescent lights were unchanged. The table had been replaced. A judge was not present, only Victor, 2 attorneys, and the documents ending the original contract. Claire read every page. Luca sat across from her, his expression controlled. The agreement allowed Claire to leave with the full settlement. She signed the final page and slid it toward him. Luca looked down. It was not a divorce petition. It terminated the payment clause. He looked up. "I do not want to be paid for staying in my own marriage," Claire said. "You earned every part of it." "I know. Then why give it up? I am not giving anything up. I am deciding what it means." Luca studied her face. "Are you certain?" Claire smiled. "No." The attorneys looked uncomfortable. Claire reached across the table. "But I am choosing it anyway." Luca took her hand. In April, they held a second ceremony in the Moretti garden. There were 18 guests. Mara stood beside Claire. Holloway attended and discussed no business. Frank sat in the last row. Diane was not invited. Vanessa sent a handwritten letter. Claire read it alone and placed it inside a drawer. The garden roses had begun to wake. Claire wore a simple ivory dress she selected without advice from her mother, her sister, or a wedding planner. Before the ceremony, Luca found her beside the stone bench. He stopped several feet away. "Do you need more time?" Claire looked at him. No one had asked her that on her first wedding day. She held out her hand. "No." Luca crossed the garden and took it. The vows were short. There was no business clause, no inheritance deadline, no enemy waiting for the clock to run out. When Luca kissed her, Claire heard Mara crying behind them and Frank clearing his throat in the last row. She did not look back. A week later, Claire carried her original wedding dress into a non-profit boutique that provided formal clothing to women rebuilding their lives after abuse and financial hardship. The woman behind the counter lifted the ivory fabric carefully. "It is beautiful." Claire looked at the dress that had once represented the life she thought she wanted. "Yes," she said. "It is." Before leaving, she removed one small pearl button from the inside seam. She kept it in a wooden box in her bedroom, not because of Ethan, not because of Vanessa, because she had walked away. That evening, Claire stood at the garden window of the Moretti residence. The branches that had remained bare through winter now carried small green buds. Luca joined her. He did not interrupt the silence. Claire rested her head against his shoulder. The city glowed beyond the glass. Her sister had stolen the groom the dress and the place Claire was expected to occupy. For years, Claire had believed losing a place meant losing a future. Now she understood that some doors closed because the life behind them had never been large enough for her. Luca reached for her hand. This time there was no contract between them, only choice.